Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday evening experience. I'm Reverend Laura from the Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Las Vegas, and it's my pleasure to be back here with you again tonight. And our Wednesday evening experiences are all about the things that we can do to experience a more fulfilling life, a richer life, a life that is free of health struggles and relationship struggles and things like that, or at least reduce the amount of those struggles that we feel in our life. And so we're looking at practical ways that we can actually begin to do that. Last week we talked about the practice of mindfulness and how we can use mindfulness in lots of different areas in our lives to bring us into a sense of peace and balance and awareness by staying in the present moment. And while we're in that present moment, not reacting to things that are happening or things that we think might happen or things that happened in the past. We spend so much time staying out of the present moment in our lives, and we ruminate on the past and we worry about the future. And all of that leads to a buildup of stress in our bodies. And so tonight we're looking at how we can actually begin to enhance our physical well-being through our mind and body connection. Over the last 20 years, I have been exploring this idea of a mind-body connection in relationship to my own personal health and my journey through life. And I have found quite a few things that have been totally eye-opening to me about how I thought about health and how I thought about my body and the relationship that I had with my body. Being an overweight person, I have always felt like I had an antagonistic relationship with my body. Like my body, wasn't really supporting me well, didn't help me well. I mean, I know that part of the weight loss or weight gain that I have was done through some stressful times in my life when when I felt like I needed to protect myself. And so sometimes I think maybe I added the weight on to build up barriers to protect myself in some way. And so it's been a 20-year exploration of how I can move through these things. And as you can see, I'm still working on the whole weight issue, but I've had some really profound experiences of changing how I thought about my body and having different results in my life. The very first time that I had any awareness of how I thought about my body, I was seeing a chiropractor. I had been in a ATV. I was on an ATV and had an accident. So I was seeing the chiropractor for my shoulder that was all tweaked out of shape. And so I went into the chiropractor and she said to me, "How are you feeling? How are you today?" And I said, "Oh, I'm fine, but my lupus is flared up." And she looked at me and she said, "The lupus." Now, I was diagnosed with lupus when I was 29 years old, and it's an autoimmune disease that can be really, really hard on people. I didn't have, my doctor said I did not have he said, Jaws woman-eating kind of lupus that a lot of people had, but it showed up in lots of different ways. It showed up with my cheeks having that telltale flush that people with lupus get. It's called a malar rash. I would have that. My joints would hurt. I would be achy and so forth. But when the chiropractor said to me, "The lupus," in response to me saying my lupus, I never realized how much I had made that disease part of my experience, how I had claimed it for myself as part of who I was. It wasn't something that was happening to me. It was I took ownership of it. It was such a powerful moment, and I realized right then and there that I needed to change my relationship, my mental relationship with what was happening in my body. And so this mind-body connection is a powerful and intricate relationship that we have between our mental and our physical states. But what happens to us on the mental plane can significantly influence how our bodies function, and in turn impact our overall well-being, how we feel on a daily basis, and how things move through our bodies, to keep us sick or not. Understanding this connection is essential for having a healthy and balanced life. And so there are some tools that we can learn to improve our physical well-being. One of the things that is so evident in the manifestation of the mind-body connection is stress. You know, as I said, lupus is an autoimmune disease, and it is triggered by stress. And so that chronic stress that I would feel would lead to all kinds of different physical health conditions. Lupus is considered a systemic disease. The type of lupus I had was systemic. In fact, it's called systemic lupus erythematosus. And so I had other body systems affected by this, not just my joints and connective tissue, which is a biggie with the inflammation and the joint pain and so forth that I have, but it also affected my lungs, leading me to have chronic bronchitis, asthma, all kinds of issues with that. It affects the kidneys, the function of the kidneys and so forth. And of course, you know, we wind up with this compromised immune system because of it. You know, to improve our physical well-being, it is critical that we develop effective stress management tools. So mindfulness meditation, deep breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation are techniques that can help us reduce stress levels, but also becoming aware of what we believe, what we actually believe is going on. Is this effect that I have in my body right now something that I have to have forever? You know, oftentimes we get these kind of diagnoses, and that's it's just like, well, that's going to be my experience from now on. I remember when I was diagnosed was before the internet, or at least before the internet was readily available for people. And so, of course, I went to the library and was looking it up. And all I could find was that it was a disease that affected almost all women, almost exclusively women, not all women, but it very seldom affected men, but it did occasionally. And most women were diagnosed with it later on in life. And so they would live to be, 75 or 80. And I thought, well, as a 29-year-old, I'm thinking, okay, well, so I lived to be 75 or 80. That's kind of probably what I would do anyway. But to me, it was a life sentence. I would have this forever. And, as I began to understand it and to realize how I was thinking about it, I began to change my relationship with it. So, doing these practices of mindfulness meditation, of deep breathing exercises, and so forth, all kinds of meditation, journaling about it, having a dialogue journal with your body is a powerful tool to help us figure out what we're thinking about in our bodies. As I said, when I realized how much ownership I had taken of that disease and how much I had let it identify me, then I began to do things to stop that. And one of the first things I began was studying meditation, and that has been one of my go-to practices for over 20 years now. And a lot of that involves breathing. So as I said before, deep breathing exercises. When I'm stressed, I stop and I breathe. I connect with my body when I feel stress of any kind. Like I said, I was diagnosed at 29 with it, which would have been 1989. By 2010, I had completely gotten off of all medication for lupus. I was able to, through my mindfulness practice, through my attention to it, through changing the way I was thinking about things, I no longer have to no longer had to take any medication. And I was recently at the doctor's getting blood work done, and I was seeing a new doctor because I moved back to Las Vegas, and I told him I was diagnosed with lupus, and so he, of course, ran all the lupus panels. And when I got the blood results, he says, there's no sign of lupus in your body. And so for me, it's been a powerful indication that this practice of meditation and mindfulness and changing how I think about things can really begin to bring a different experience into our lives. The other thing that can really help us with this is how we think about things. Are we thinking about things in a positive way or a negative way? When I first was diagnosed with that, it was a negative thought pattern. Oh, okay, I'm going to have this for the rest of my life. All right, let me learn how to manage it. What pills can I take? What can I do to do that? But changing how I thought about that and begin thinking, well, this doesn't have to be my experience. Having that positive thinking about it, it really is a way to alleviate some of those negative patterns and beliefs that often lead to anxiety, for sure, and chronic pain and chronic illnesses and so forth. When we cultivate a positive mindset through practices like meditation, through understanding what we're thinking, we can begin to improve our physical well-being. And of course, by changing our thought patterns, we reduce our body's stress response, and that can promote healing in lots of different ways. So our emotions, along with our thinking, but our emotions are deeply intertwined with our physical bodies. So unresolved emotional issues can show up as physical manifestations. And tools like journaling, or seeing a counselor or therapist, or simply talking to a trusted friend can help us release some of these pent-up emotions and improve our physical well-being. We're not trying to minimize this. We acknowledge and address the emotional burdens, but when we do that, we can experience relief from physical discomfort and ailments. So I've told you about my story about lupus, but in 2014, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I got the diagnosis in my doctor's office. Fortunately for me, my friend, mentor, spiritual companion lived about 15 minutes away from the doctor's office. So I didn't even call. I just headed to her house. And I got there and she saw the look on my face. And so, brought me in and we started talking. And I can honestly say I had about 2 hours of feeling unbelievable stress and anxiety in my body. That idea of how bad is this going to be? And something just washed over me at some point during our conversation. She can't remember, I can't remember, don't have any clue what was said. But it was just because I had taken myself and put myself into a situation where I could speak with someone who knew spiritual truth, who could talk to me in a way that did not increase the fear and the anxiety. And when I left there, about 2 hours later, I was okay. It was like, okay, I have things to do. I know we're going to see the oncologist. We're going to see what they say. We're going to follow those steps. And, everything along the way, it's okay. It'll all be fine. And I just had this overwhelming sense of how much that meant to me to be able to just release it and embrace it. So I go home to where I live, and I called my father was living with me, and I called my brother who lived nearby, and I said I need you to come over. He and his wife, because I need to talk to Dad about this and tell Dad what's happening. And I wanted to do it with some support around me, because we had lost my older brother previously from cancer, and I knew my dad was going to take it hard, and so I wanted some support there to do it. And I remember as I was talking to him and telling him about it, I said, I know that this thing called cancer happens when we hold in emotions. When we hold things into our body, it gives them a place to work, and that can actually begin to deteriorate our cells, and that gives cancer a place to operate in our bodies. So I'm telling you right now that I am done holding anything in. I am going to be open and authentic about things that are happening, and I'm not going to let them attach themselves to anything in my body. I addressed emotional issues, and I gave them a place to be released in my body and my experience. And I tell you, that made all the difference. If I could have described the best way to go through a cancer experience, I think what I experienced far exceeded anything I could have ever imagined. It really was. It was just a few things that we had to do, and seemed like it was done in just a matter of months, and everything was good. And it's been 9 years now, totally cancer-free ever since. And I know that it's never coming back, because I know that I no longer hold in the stuff that's going to let it happen. So emotional release, letting that stuff out, is a powerful way that we can begin to clear out some of the stuff in our bodies. Another thing that we can do, which I know I don't do well enough in my life, is exercise. Exercise is such a powerful tool that actually influences both our mental and physical health. So when we, there's the chemistry of it. When we engage in physical activity, our brains release endorphins and other hormones that are actually natural mood lifters. They actually make us feel better when we do that. This not only reduces the amount of mental health issues, but it also enhances our physical well-being because our body's functioning the way it's supposed to be functioning. We're supposed to have these endorphins released. We're supposed to have these hormones released in our body as our body moves. It's meant to move. And so the more we can do that, the more we're going to enhance our physical well-being. I think that the key is to find the exercise routine that you enjoy, that actually makes you want to get out and do it. I haven't found it yet. I think it should be walking, but it just hasn't happened yet. Although I do enjoy my little walks with my puppy, so I'm hoping that will stick and that I can actually begin to feel the experience that is possible when we exercise. The other thing that we have to begin to think about with our mind-body connection is not just our nutrition, but how mindfully are we eating? The foods that we consume have a huge impact on our mental and physical states. I know that there are lots of people out there. I'm not happen to be one of them. Chocolate really isn't my go-to thing, but I know people who can be in any kind of a mood possible, and they have a piece of chocolate, and they are just balanced out. Everything's good. Same thing happens with coffee because of the caffeine and so forth in there. Or it's maybe just the warm, rich taste of it. I'm not sure. But, I know that food can actually change our physical and mental well-being. I know that there are foods that I want to eat when I'm feeling stressed, my comfort foods. Sometimes they're healthy foods. Sometimes they're not so healthy. And sometimes it's not that it's not healthy food, but I want to eat more of it than I should. And so if we practice this mindful eating where we are aware of what we're eating and the reason that we're eating it, and that we're not eating it for emotional support, but we're eating it for improving our body, I think that can have a profound experience on how our bodies react to the food that we eat. When we nourish our bodies with the right nutrients, it supports our mental clarity and our physical vitality. So paying attention while we eat, are you eating in front of the TV? That's something that I often do. I don't watch a lot of TV, but that's when I want to watch it, is when I sit down to eat. When I sit down to watch TV, I want to eat. So the two of them are very intrinsically linked for me. Are you eating more than you need to be eating? Are you allowing yourself to eat the foods that you really aren't going to serve your body very well? There's nothing inherently wrong with any food. And I think we can probably eat just about anything as long as we do it in the proper portions, proper moderation. Everybody has their own conclusion about what food is best for them. I've tried pretty much all of the different ways of eating out there, and it's a personal thing. So figure out what that is, but do it mindfully. Do it with a conscious intention to nourish our bodies. This mind-body connection, it's really, truly a fundamental aspect of well-being. And it happens on the mental plane and has a direct impact on our physical plane. And by implementing these tools and practices that manage our stress, that promote positive thinking, that take care of our emotional issues, that move our body, and that allow us to nourish our bodies in a mindful way, we harness this connection between our mind and our physical being, and it improves our overall well-being in great ways. It's a holistic approach to health that considers both the mind and the body as key to achieving a balanced and thriving life. So as you're going about this week, look for those areas that you can choose better to support your life, and look at thoughts that you have around how your body functions and so forth. If you have been diagnosed with any kind of medical condition, how are you feeling about that? What is your belief system around it? How does it impact your life? Begin to ask yourself these questions as you are moving throughout your week, and just begin to see what shows up and take action where you're called to take action. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next week on our Wednesday evening experience. Bye-bye.